Okay, we are on the next part, and we left off halfway through like an excerpt because it got kind of stretched. So we're just picking up where we left off. So we kind of went over just like some vague, more like kind of primitive, fundamental, idealistic kind of, I don't know, history. I don't really know what to call it, honestly, but it's kind of where we left off. So continuing right here. Parmenides affirms that the two first principles are air and night, whence it is evident that he reverences in silence the one principle which is prior to the two, from which I conceive he holds that Tartarus is generated regarding it as a nature and a manner compounded of the two. For some, indeed, regard the principle which is derived from these two as a kind of intelligible intermediate subsistence or mediati, properly so called, inasmuch as it extends itself to both extremities, the summit and the boundary, for by their connection with one another an egg is generated, which is properly the very intelligible animal, from which again proceeds another progeny. But Pherecydes Sirius considers the three first principles to be an ever vital subsistence, Cronus and an earthly subsistence, placing, as I conceive, the one prior to the two and the two posterior to the one, and that Cronus generated from himself fire and spirit and water, representing, I presume, the threefold nature of the intelligible, from which, when they became distributed into 5 recesses, were constituted a numerous race of gods, called the 5 times animated order, equivalent to what he might call a 5-fold world. But another opportunity may perhaps occur for the discussion of this part of the subject. Such and of a similar description are the hypotheses which are received by us relative to the Greek mythological fables, which are numerous and very various. But the Babylonians, like the rest of the barbarians, pass over in silence the one principle of the universe, and they constitute two, Tauthe and Apason, making Apason the husband of Tauthe and denominating her the mother of the gods. And from these proceeds an only begotten son, Moimus, which I conceive is no other than the intelligible world proceeding from the two principles. From them also is another progeny derived, Dashe and Dashus, and again a third, Caesar and Asaurus, from which last 3 others proceed, Anus, Elinus, and Aus. And of Aus and Dause is born a son called Belus, who, they say, is the fabricator of the world, the demiurges. But of the Magi and all the Aryan race, according to the relation of Eudemus, some denominate the intelligible universe and the united place, while others call it time, Cronus, from whom separately proceeded a god divinity and an evil daemon, or, as some assert, prior to these, light and darkness. Both the one, therefore, and the other, after an undivided nature, hold the twofold coordination of the superior natures as separated and distinct, over one of which they place Oromastes as the ruler, and over the other Arminius. The Sidonians, according to the same writer, before all things place Cronus, Pothos, and Amosles, time, love, and cloudy darkness, and by a connection between Pothos and Amosles, the two principles are generated air and aura, air and a gentle breeze, substituting air for the summit of the intelligible, and the breeze arising it for the vivifying prototype of the intelligible. And from these two again is generated Otus, the night raven, representing, as I conceive, the intelligible mind. But independent of the collections of Eudemus, we find the mythology of the Phoenicians thus delivered according to Moses. First was ether and air, which are the two first principles. From these was produced Olympus, the intelligible god, and as I conceive, the summit of the intelligible, from whom, by a connection with himself, was produced Cusaurus, the first expanding principle, and then the egg. By the latter, I imagine they mean the intelligible mind, but by Cosaurus, the intelligible power, being the first nature which separates an unseparated subsistence, unless perhaps after the two principles the summit may be the one wind, but the middle, the two winds lips, and notice southwest and south, for sometimes they place these prior to Olympus, in which case Olympus himself would be the intelligible mind, and the expanding Cusaurus the first order after the intelligible, and the egg heaven. For it is said by that by the rupture of it into two parts, heaven and earth were produced from one of its two severed parts. Of the Egyptian doctrines, Eudemus gives us no accurate information, but the Egyptian philosophers who are resident among us have explained their occult truth, having obtained it from certain Egyptian discourses. According to them, then it appears to be this: the one principle of the universe is celebrated 3 times pronounced as much, and the two principles are water and sand, according to Horatius. But according to Asclepiades, who is the more ancient of the two, sand and water, from whom, and the next in succession after them, is generated the first Camephis, and from this a second, and from this again a third, which they affirm completes the whole intelligible distribution. Such is the system of Asclepiades. But the more modern Horatius says that the third, who is named Camephis, from his father and grandfather, is the son, equivalent in this case to the intelligible mind, but greater accuracy upon the subject can only be obtained from these authors themselves. It must be observed, however, with regard to the Egyptians, that they are often wont to distribute subsistence according to union, as when they divide the intelligible into the individualities of a multitude of gods, they may be learnt from their own writings by those who will examine them. I refer particularly to the commentary of Horatius upon the Egyptian doctrine addressed to Proclus, the philosopher alone, and to the concordance of the Egyptian writers, begun by Asclepiades and addressed to the other theologists. Yeah, folks, I really don't really... I really can't make of anything of that other than just kind of like... I don't know. Like when they say like 1 is the beginning and then they, 2 is the beginning. It just doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't... All this stuff just kind of either goes over my head or it's not... I'm not picking up the information correctly, as I assume. Like I said, it's just like, this is like type of like stuff that I think of in my head, you know, like kind of like, I don't know, I guess one type of way of like looking at things is to like, I tend to see people kind of like as like having their own spirit animal. Everybody kind of has like their own spirit animal, or kind of like nature, you know what I mean? So when you look at things like very analogously, it helps you like kind of see things, but it doesn't help you like, maybe not see things, but kind of like help you refer to things and refer like behaviors and patterns and stuff and whatnot. But when it comes to like, you know, the origin of mankind and like what our ancestors have left us, when they leave us stuff like this, it still doesn't, it seems like it's supposed to be like the most basic form of logic, like, oh, the chicken comes before the egg, like type of thing. But it's really it's other than just like it being kind of like abstract, ideas and kind of principles of thinking, because it is like kind of thinking, like I said, it's like you using analogies is one way of thinking. It's a very strong way of thinking because you can kind of relate things, and sometimes you do assume things, which is not good, but for the most part, having like a very analogous mindset, or however that's supposed to be phrased, really does help you kind of see patterns and things, and kind of like address things as everything being the same. Like if you're working a job, right, and you have to do this sort of thing, but it takes a lot of effort to do it, and you notice nobody's doing it, and then you go to another job, and this thing that you do for the job, it takes a lot of effort and nobody wants to do it. It's kind of like a pattern you see. It's like, okay, these are the things in life that are like really difficult to do, and it's like we gotta handle them. But it's like how you like spot that pattern, and knowing to like, okay, how do I approach this, is kind of like the part where you use that kind of like it's sort of like just like recognizing patterns, you know what I mean? It's not more so just like a method to solving a solution of any sort. I don't know how to word it. Maybe I'm just like not wording this right, but that's kind of just my problem with all this stuff. Is just I can't really put it into like a historical context. So I'm just gonna kind of breeze over that and just kind of go over to the next segment, which is astronomical fragments of the great year from Berosus. Berosus, who thus interprets the Babylonian tradition, says that these events take place according to the course of the stars, and affirms it so positively as to assign the time for the conflagration and the deluge. Okay. Huh. Yeah, sorry, I had like a bit of a stomach. Some bowel movements, a little hungry. I'm just thinking right now, when it says conflagration, what it's implying by that. I mean, obviously we know what the deluge is, but as to assign the time for the conflagration and the deluge. Okay, so let's just continue. He maintains that all the terrestrial things will be consumed when the planets, which now are traversing their different courses, shall all coincide in the sign of Cancer, and be so placed that a straight line could be passed directly through all their orbs. But the inundation will take place when the same conjunction of all the planets shall hold on. Okay. But the inundation will take place when the same conjunction of the planets shall occur in Capricorn. In the first is the summer, in the last the winter of the year. 2. Like, I just remember watching all these like cartoons as a kid, and like you seen like all this like crap happening when like the planets align, or I don't know, like I'm just thinking like Tom and Jerry, just like those ridiculous like apocalypse type of like, this is where this idea comes from. This is like raw information. Like who did like I thought that kind of stuff was like Nostradamus stuff, but if these guys, I can't believe these guys are saying this type of stuff. Like, see, the problem is this is in Latin, and this is Berosus is a Christian author. But see, like, I mean, I guess they can observe these things as orbs, but how would they know if they line up? How did these people know these things? How could you? I mean, I guess that so. You The only way this would like kind of make sense is like if you were to see Mars, right? So you would only, if this were the case, on one side you'd see Mars, and then the other side you'd see like Venus directly, right? But that's not. So we're in. We're in. So we're in the age of no, we're not in the age of it. We're towards the age of the end of Pisces. Okay, so hold on. Let me ask the AI real quick. Let's check this out real quick. I kind of want to know actually this. Okay, so if we're in the age of Pisces, according to I don't know what to call it, astrological and astronomical. Astronomical terminology, right? So if we're in the age of Pisces, according to the astrological and astronomical terminology, what year would the sign of Cancer start, and at what time during Cancer would all the planets be aligned? Like I said, this is actually dumbfounded that these guys know how the planets can align themselves like that. I mean, like, you know, you can say, oh, they're just looking at the sky, right? So they're just like looking at the sky and determining that like one's behind another. I mean, unless these guys are just staring at this stuff, I don't know. Something's oddly suspicious. I'm telling you guys. I'm really telling you guys. It takes a lot of effort to know this type of stuff. Okay, so let me scope this out more. Okay, this is so wordy. Okay, so Pisces. So age of Cancer, Gemini, Taurus, Aries, oh, so that was. Okay, wait a minute. Okay. What the heck? Conclusion for Cancer start. The astrological age of Cancer began around 8,600 BCE. So is Capricorn before? What year would Capricorn be? Whoa, that's like really weird how it's like they almost like pinpointed the time of like the Younger Dryas, or like just after it. Okay, so the age of Aquarius and then the age of Capricorn. Aquarius and then age of Capricorn, so 4,000. That's weird how the age of Pisces, we started at 1 CE. Is that weird for me or anybody else, or is that not weird? But so when they're saying Cancer, they're saying like this 8,009, almost 9,000 years ago. That's like, dude, right? Is that? Did I look at that right? Did I read that right? Yeah. Here, look. See, BCE. So that Dude, that's crazy. So let me read this again. He maintains that all terrestrial things will be consumed when the planets, which are now traversing their different courses, all coincide in the sign of Cancer, right? So they're in the age of the Cancer, and then be so placed that a straight line could be passed directly through all their orbs, so all the planets are aligned, and then the inundation will take place when the same conjunction of all of the planets shall occur in Capricorn. So that's 2,000 years from now. So that's when they say that, like, there's supposed to be another. That's so crazy how this is like so close to the. I mean, it could be more accurate. Maybe Berosus could have been more accurate on when the flood date was, because the way we have like the Younger Dryas like pinpointed is like 11,000, like 10,000 years. That's like a rough dating. But this book's saying it's a little after like 9,000 years ago, or a little bit before 9,000 years ago. So it's not, well. Yeah, okay. Fascinating. Honestly, like, I don't get how he made that assumption, but they're saying that. So I mean, this is well out of everybody's lifetime, but I mean, who's to know if like we're all like, you know, what's that word called? Reincarnated chronologically. So I mean, I guess I don't know. I guess eventually in like one life we'll have to experience, you know, the what's gonna happen in 4000 CE, because this is crazily accurately close to the freaking the deluge dating that we have, which is like 11,000, which is like the end of the Younger Dryas. Like I said, you know, the way they pinpoint the flood was through these like ice caps, and like the way that like the ice melted and stuff like that, and then they discovered like, hey, there's a really big warming period, and then that probably that was said to have, for a lot of people, was said to have caused like a bunch of like disruption of like, or like melting of the ice, and there's melting ice had like a lot of buildup. Like I said, I have like a couple of videos I really do have to like make on this. I already have like a bunch of lecture slides for it. I just really want to solidify my information, but there's also some more books I need to look at before I really solidify it. But I mean, they could have gone one age further back maybe, and it could have been more accurate, but I don't know. Maybe this is the right date. I mean, honestly, who can say for sure? Honestly, really, who can really say for sure, like, what the date really was? But the fact that like these guys knew, or like these guys got like a close number to like where we're at, and standing on when that deluge was today, that's pretty crazy. That's absolutely crazy. And then this is saying that when the planets align again in Capricorn, so that's gonna happen somewhere in like 4000 AD, CE, whatever you want to call it. That's 2,000 years from now. This Earth is supposed to go through some sort of great like destruction. That is absolutely crazy. I'm kind of like mind blown by that, honestly. Like I said, it's pretty crazy how I got it so accurately. Okay. Of the great year from Censorinus. In the great year of the Egyptians, which the Greeks call the Cynic, and we in Latin the Canicular, the moon is not taken into consideration, inasmuch as its commencement is fixed when Canicula rises upon the first day of that month, which the Egyptians call Thoth. For their civil year has only 365 days without any intercalary day, whence the quadrennium so adjusts itself that in the 1461st year the revolution is completed. This year by some called the heliacol, by others the anniatus, or the year. But the year, which Aristotle calls the greatest rather than the great, is that in which the sun, moon, and all the planets complete their courses and return to the same sign from which they originally started together. How do they know when they started it together? The winter of this year is the cataclysm, which we call the deluge, but its summer is the ekpyrosis, that is the conflagration of the world. Okay, so that has something to do with fire. The winter of this year is the cataclysm, which we call the deluge, but its summer is the Epicurus. Okay. For at these alternate seasons the world is burned and deluged. Aristarchus supposes this periodical revolution consists of 2,484 years. Aretes of Dyrrhachium of 5,552. Herodotus and Linus 10,800 of 13,984. Orpheus of 120,000. Cassandras of 136,000. Others suppose it to be infinite in duration, and that the celestial bodies never again coincide in their original positions. Yeah, he now is just throwing everything out the window right there at the end. It just kind of throws everything off. Okay, of the chronological eras from Censorinus, I will now treat of that interval of time which Varro calls historic, for he divides the times into three parts. The first from the beginning of mankind to the former cataclysm. The second, which extends to the first Olympiad, is denominated mythic because in it the fabulous achievements are said to have happened. The third, which extends from the first Olympiad to ourselves. Okay, so the former cataclysm to the Olympiad is the second. And then the third is from the Olympiad to us. Is called historic because actions have been performed in it are related in authentic history. So this is a different type of chronology. You know, it's still kind of ambiguous though. There's more. Okay. The first period either had some beginning or had endured from eternity. However that may be, it is impossible to make out what the number of its years. That's fair. Alright. Neither is the second period accurately determined. Yet it is believed to contain about 1,600 years, but from the former cataclysm, which they call that Ogyges, Ogyges? To the reign of Annacius, about 400 years. From thence to the first Olympiad, something more than 400, of which alone, inasmuch as they are the last years of the mythic period. And the next within memory, certain writers have attempted more accurately to determine the number. Thus, Sosibius writes that they were 395, Eratosthenes 407, Timaeus 417, Orethries 164. Many others also have different opinions, the very discrepancy of which shews the uncertainty in which it is involved. Concerning the third interval, there was also some disagreement among different writers, though it is confined within a period of only 6 or 11 years. Varro has, however, examined that the obscurity in which it is involved, and comparing with his usual sagacity the chronicles and annals of different states, calculating the intervals wanted or to be added by reckoning them backwards, has at length arrived at the truth and brought it to light, so that not only a determinate number of years, but even days can be set forth, according to which calculation, unless I am greatly deceived, the present year, whose name in the title is that of the consulships of Ulpius and Pontanus, is from the first Olympiad, the 1014th, reckoning from the summer, at which the time of the year the Olympic Games are celebrated, but from the foundation of Rome it is the 991st. But this is the Pelalia, 21st April, from which the years ab urbe condita are reckoned. But of those years which are called the Julian years, it is the 283rd, reckoning from the calends of January, from which day of the year Julius Caesar ordered the beginning of the year to be reckoned. But of those years which are called the Augustan, it is the 265th, reckoning also from the calends of January of that year, in which upon the 16th of the calends of February 15th, the son of Divus Julius Caesar was saluted Emperor and Augustus on the motion of Numatius Plancius by the Senate and the rest of the citizens in the consulship of himself for the 7th time, and M. Vipsanus Agrippa. But the Egyptians, who 2 years before had been reduced under the dominion of the Roman people, reckoned 268 Augustan years, for by the Egyptians, in like manner as by ourselves, certain years are recorded, and they all call their era the era of Nabonidus, and their years are calculated from the first year of his reign, of which years the present is the 986. The Philippic years are also used among them, and are calculated from the death of Alexander the Great, and from thence to the present time of 562 years has elapsed. But the beginning of those years are always reckoned from the first day of that month, which is by the Egyptians Thoth, which happened this year upon the 7th of the calends of July, the 25th of June, for 100 years ago, from the present year of the consulship of Ulpius and Brucius. What is this little ad lib right here? Do you see this? Chronological and what is this word? Proesius? That's interesting. The same fell upon the 12th of the calends of August, the 21st of July, on which day Canicula regularly rises in Egypt, whence we know that of this great year, which was before mentioned under the name of the solar canicular or Triateris, by which it was commonly called, the present current year must be the 100th. I have been careful in pointing out the commencement of all these years, lest anyone should not be aware of the customs in this respect, which are not less various than the opinions of the philosophers. It is commenced by some with the new sun, that is, at the winter solstice, by many at the summer solstice. Others again reckon from the vernal or from the autumnal equinox. Also some begin the year of the rising or setting of Virgilia, the Pleiades, but many from the rising of the dog star. Interesting. Okay, I think I'll end it here. we're already like about more than half an hour in, so I kind of like to end it around this time. So we'll definitely continue here. Seems like more astronomical and astrological stuff like we've been looking at, so it's really good information, honestly. But still not really too much I can really point out. I'm wondering if maybe I should start writing notes, but I might start writing notes on the next book because, I mean, we're already on like page 430 of 470, so we're pretty much, I mean, we're literally already almost done with this book, and I kind of want to finish this book completely before I start a new book, just to say, like, you know, I completed a book completely, and then after this book, I want to start two books at the same time, because I have two books that I finally picked out that I think that they're both from the 1800s, that I think are well worth looking into, and very much as well worth discussing. So, kind of like just muscle through the rest of this and get some good ideas, finish this all up, and then move on to the next stuff. So, pretty excited. So, yeah, we'll continue right here in the next part.